Okay, let's unpack this. We're all living in a world of just information overload. I mean, every inbox, every social feed is just screaming for our attention.
It's constant.
And the result is often just paralysis.
Mhm.
So how do you, in the middle of all that chaos, cut through the noise and figure out who you really are?
And then how do you communicate that without feeling like you're, just performing?
Right. And that's exactly what today's deep dive is about. We're focusing on two really powerful ideas. First, you have to own your story. And second, you need to share what you're learning.
And the source material for this is, it's a really fascinating look at one person's journey.
Yeah.
It goes from this place of like intense, paralyzing insecurity all the way to really purposeful leadership.
Yeah.
But we're not just reading a memoir here. Our goal really is to pull out the actual tools, the frameworks inside this story that you can start using right away to define your own narrative.
So where does this all start? It starts with a moment of, well, sheer panic. The story opens with the narrator finding out his wife, Laya, is pregnant. And he was not ready. His reaction wasn't some, movie moment of joy. He describes giving her a limp hug.
And then asking, are you sure?
Exactly. Are you sure?
It was a huge internal crisis. He was just consumed by this fear of being a bad dad, totally convinced he was going to pass on all these things he saw as flaws.
Like his stutter.
His stutter, and just this deep, deep feeling of being fundamentally damaged. He felt like his own dreams were just, poof, gone.
And so instead of, slowing down and actually being there for his wife, he does the complete opposite. He tries to get control through just sheer hyperactivity.
Right, running a million miles an hour.
Which is where we get this mental image that is so absurd, but so perfect. In his wife's third trimester, he's in Barcelona, desperately trying to sell $2 neoprene koozies.
It's the perfect metaphor for running away from the real problem by creating a different, manageable one.
But all that running, it comes to a screeching halt the moment his son, Liam, is born. The source describes this tiny 7-pound human as this immovable object that just forced him to stop.
Yeah, and minutes after the birth, they place Liam in his arms. The baby's fussy, of course, but then he looks up at his dad.
Yeah.
And for a few minutes, he just stops crying.
And that quiet moment, that silent look, that was everything. That was the pivot.
That's all it took.
That silence forced him to hit pause on, years of anxiety and just focus on who he was right then, not who he was pretending to be. He realized he couldn't live with the story that he was destined to be a failure.
And that realization, it kicks off a whole process. It wasn't just some sudden epiphany. It was, actual work. First, he gets a therapist and just starts hitting rewind.
Going back to all those moments of embarrassment.
Exactly. Digging into the root of that feeling of being inadequate. And his homework was critical. He had to write every day about these feelings, define his values, and literally create a North Star for how he wanted to show up for his son.
But this is the part I think is so brilliant, and it's the part that makes it a blueprint for all of us. He didn't just look inward.
No, he sought out external views.
He went to his family, his childhood friends, and just asked them straight up, "How do you see me?" And they told him things he'd always missed.
Things he saw as weaknesses, a quirky sense of humor, creativity, sensitivity.
And over again, empathy.
And that's where it all clicks.
Yeah.
The synthesis happens. He sees this pattern emerge where the things people admired most in him, being empathetic, creative, sensitive, vulnerable,
Were the exact same traits he thought were holding him back. His biggest liabilities. He'd been hiding his strengths in plain sight.
which is such a massive insight. And when he finally started sharing all of this, the insecurities, the mistakes, on a blog, his colleagues warned him. They said it would be kryptonite for his career.
But the opposite happened. It wasn't a career killer at all. It was a life accelerator. It started attracting all these opportunities because people connected with the honesty. It proved that owning your whole story is your single greatest asset.
Which brings us to a really important distinction we have to make about storytelling itself.
Yeah, the word is so loaded now.
At its most basic, right? A story is just. A character faces a challenge and risks everything to overcome it. Simple.
But in the modern world, storytelling has become this transactional tactic. It's for business. Our notes point out that these marketing techniques where they literally tell you to agitate, exaggerate, and twist the knife.
Just to amplify a customer's pain points until they have to buy your thing.
Right. And that approach, it might work for sales, but it completely misses the point of self-expression. The kind of storytelling we're talking about here is just noting your unique human experience.
And the key, as the sources say over and over, is not having a tactic.
It's more like making art. I love this idea from the producer Rick Rubin, who said, when making art, the audience comes last. You have to write for an audience of none.
Yes, because when you take away the tactic, honesty is the only thing left. It's the only currency that matters. The goal isn't to push an agenda. It's to create a space where someone else can choose to join your story.
It's an invitation, not a sales pitch. Your bumps and beauty and warts and wonder, as the source puts it, collide with theirs.
So if that's the goal, where do you even start building that honest story?
Well, the sources give us a beautifully simple structure. I was there, and now I'm here. Here's what happened. The hard part is, filling in those blanks.
And that is where this really practical tool comes in. It's called the life timeline. The advice is to get a big piece of paper, turn it sideways, and just draw a line.
And do it with pen and paper first. It forces you to slow down.
Exactly. And you just map out every impactful event, personal, professional, good, bad, from birth until right now.
I think the real magic of this isn't even the first draft, though. It's going back to it a day or a week later. Our brains are so good at protecting us, right? We downplay the hard stuff. But when you look at that timeline again, dots that seemed random suddenly connect.
You see these profound patterns that were totally invisible while you were living through them. You can literally draw a line from a period of, say, financial struggle to a later period of generosity and see how the first one taught you the second.
And you can get even more specific with themed timelines to really dig into your values, like map just your career moments, promotions, failed projects, great bosses, and see what really drives you.
Or do one for defining relationships. Use old photos or emails to spark memories of why you connected or disconnected with people.
But the most revealing one, according to the source material, is mapping the moments you got seriously pissed off.
Anger is such a powerful signal.
Yeah, if you sit with it, it almost always points to a core value that was violated, something you feel needs to be made right in the world.
For the narrator, he realized values like curiosity and kindness were so important to him because he'd experienced the opposite, being judged and dismissed.
Yeah.
That gave him so much clarity.
And you see how powerful this is in the student examples. There was the 25-year-old Lebanese student who didn't think he had a story at all.
Right, until he revealed that after the 2020 Beirut explosions, he quit his engineering job to go volunteer for the UN. His core values were community and construction, because he grew up where destruction was just the norm.
Or Alba Mihaj. She was quiet the whole class, but at the very end, she shared that moving to Barcelona was her first real step toward finding her superpowers again after her dad died suddenly.
And that moment of vulnerability, that bravery, it didn't just lead to a group hug. It actually helped her land a job later because she brought her full, authentic self to the interview. She owned her story.
Which leads us perfectly into the second big idea: share what you're learning.
And this was a principle he learned the hard way, through fire, really.
And that fire was his first day as a sales manager. He was 25. A 37-year-old coworker looked him right in the eye and said he wouldn't be on his team.
And the reason he gave was just brutal.
I can't have you talking to my clients. It's your stutter.
I mean, that is a pressure cooker moment. The narrator's first reaction was just rage and shame. He drove a mile down the road and hid behind a Panera Bread just to scream.
He almost quit right then and there. I mean, his deepest insecurity was just used as a weapon against him in a professional setting.
But here's the question, right? In a competitive workplace, doesn't sharing that kind of vulnerability just give people ammunition?
How do you know when it stops being brave and starts being a liability?
That's the critical distinction he made. He decided to go back. And more than that, he decided to talk about his fears and his uncertainty with the rest of his team.
And that's what made the difference.
Yes. He realized that real vulnerability isn't weakness. It's an exercise in extreme bravery and the ultimate act of generosity. It's not about being insecure. It's about being honest about how hard the path is.
And when a leader does that, the team feels safe. Problems get solved faster. And it cemented this idea for him that he wasn't just a manager, he was a teacher. He loved that title.
And this shift is actually rooted in language. The word laid, the Latin root is duc or duct. It means to guide something or someone through a space.
It's the same root as the word educate.
Exactly. So leadership isn't about standing on top of the mountain. It's about guiding people through the journey that you yourself just took.
So if your goal is to help people by sharing what you've learned, you are a leader. It doesn't matter what your title is.
Which brings us to how we think about expertise. We usually assume the best teacher is the Michael Phelps of the world, right? The person who's just naturally gifted.
But the sources argue we should actually look at the person who came in sixth place, which is so counterintuitive.
It is. So why is the person who struggled more a better guide?
Because Phelps had the perfect body for swimming. The journey was easier. The person who came in sixth, they had to overcompensate. They had to try 10 different techniques, learn from every mistake.
They collected more bruises and more practical knowledge on their way up.
The struggle forced them to be creative. And that perspective, the one they gained from fighting tooth and nail, is exactly what someone who is also struggling needs to hear. They're more empathetic guides.
So the practical application here is just consistency and generosity. You don't have to be a perfect expert to share. Sharing what you're learning, even small things, like a new app you figured out, is hugely valuable to someone just a few steps behind you.
We see this all the time with young creators now, like Sinem Gunel or John Brozio. They're documenting their learning process in real time. They aren't pretending to be flawless experts.
And that builds trust, because they're on the journey with their audience. And this continuous act of sharing, it becomes a magnet. The narrator found that because he was always sharing, he didn't have to market his work for almost a decade. Referrals just came to him.
Sharing is an invitation to connect with others, for sure, but maybe more importantly, it's an invitation to connect with ourselves. The more you articulate what you're learning, the more confident you become in who you are.
So, after all of this, what does this deep dive really mean for you? The core lesson that ties all this together is so simple, but so hard in our world.
It is.
Good things happen when we just stop.
That daily reflection, it's the engine for all of this. The narrator carves out at least 30 minutes a day. It's less than 2% of your day, just for intentional reflection.
Just breathing and noting your thoughts and feelings.
And that daily, kind of mundane act of taking notes on your own life, that's how you find your big story. By sitting with your experiences and seeing how much you've already overcome, you find the courage you need for the moments that matter.
You realize you're worth getting to know.
So as you go about your day-to-day, we want to leave you with this final thought. What part of your story, maybe one you've hidden or just taken for granted, might be the exact insight that someone else out there desperately needs to hear?
What seemingly ordinary experience, if you fully owned it and shared it, could become your life accelerator.